Hi everybody in Facebook land, I'm Elizabeth Joy Roe and welcome to episode 4 of Decoda at Dusk. I'm so honored and excited to be a part of this mini-series presented by Decoda, a wonderful New York-based ensemble, and actually that's where I am. I'm coming to you live from Brooklyn, from my home, and I am equipped with a mug of tea because that gives me a lot of comfort. So I hope that you guys have a beverage, whatever you're in the mood for, and I hope that you sort of get cozy. I'm going to play for you a little bit and also talk to you about some very topical things. We are going through an unprecedented time, and I think we are all craving inspiration and some solace. And as a musician, I hope that I can bring some light to your day through music. I am dedicating tonight's episode to some very special people. I have some incredible friends and members of my family who are part of the medical community, and I need to give a shout out to all of you who are working so hard to save lives and to help keep our society running. So I send all my love to everyone at the front line of this crisis. I also give a shout out to just everybody because I feel like we are all dealing with this in our own ways, and that there's a lot of stresses that are both very obvious and also very interior. And so that's part of the reason that I have a program today that is based on the music of Chopin. Chopin is one of my favorite composers. His music is so sublime, it's expressive, it has an emotional immediacy, and it's timeless. It's also quintessentially romantic. And Chopin also dealt with a lot of trauma in his own life, from having health struggles to dealing with socio-political upheaval. And he used music to really express what he was going through, and even as a form of catharsis. And so I want to get into some different moods that Chopin presents in his music. And also, I really appreciate that some of you wrote in ahead of time and let me know what you're going through, what emotions you're experiencing. And I see that there's a range of feelings. I know that some people feel frightened and nervous, confused, a little bit lost, and I know that others are also feeling actually some measure of gratitude, because I think that this whole situation is basically giving us an opportunity to reckon with what is essential, what do we need, and what are the things that we should be grateful for. And to that end, I'm grateful for all of you. I'm grateful for my wonderful friends and family who are watching out there. I'm grateful for music and my beautiful Steinway piano, which has been my quarantine companion. And I'm grateful for connection. I think that human communication and connectivity is so crucial all the time, but especially in these challenging and uncertain days. So I'm going to start off with one of Chopin's most beloved works. It is his Prelude in E minor, opus 28. It's the fourth prelude for the fourth month of the year. And this is a perfect example of Chopin's artistry, his poetry. It is intensely expressive, largely because of the constant use of both half steps and whole steps. He's sort of pushing the intervals to kind of fill you with a sense of tension, with a sense of yearning, and a sense of pain. And there are some accounts that say that Chopin was struggling with tuberculosis when he wrote this. We're not sure if that exactly happened. The preludes were published in 1838, so certainly he was struggling with his health, and I think that this prelude gives a really powerful example of how one can express the pain that one is going through, whether it be for health reasons or for other reasons. So the Prelude in E minor, opus 28. That was the Prelude in E minor by Chopin. As I said earlier, he really messes around with the constant half steps and then whole steps, but the tightness of those intervals are filled with so much pathos, and then also the genius chord changes. I mean, they're so beautiful, and I almost like to think of the melody as if perhaps that is our own individual personal response to all the chaos that's going on in the world, and then all the chord changes are maybe all the shifting energies in the world around us, and that everything feels a little bit amorphous and confusing. And I guess I'm here to say, no matter what you're going through, no matter where you are, it's okay to feel confused, and it's okay to feel down. I think one of the challenges of this time is to keep our spirits up and to look at the bright side, but also to not escape the discomfort and to get a little more philosophical, the shadows. In a way, this whole experience is forcing us to shelter in place, to isolate ourselves, to separate ourselves from the hubbub of everyday life. And while that can be really scary and isolating and disillusioning, it's also giving us the opportunity to really just sit with our feelings and almost to be in a meditative state. And I think every time I play these preludes, I feel almost as if it's an opportunity to be quiet and still and to allow his incredible music to move me. I have a space heater here, it's getting a little steamy. I am going to play another prelude. This is similar and yet subtly different. The reason that I chose this next prelude, is the prelude in B minor, is that I feel that this is a prelude of resignation. So let me know in the comments if you're feeling at times resigned. Resigned that this is the new normal. Resigned that you don't know how long this is going to take. Resigned that as musicians our concerts have been canceled and we cannot basically we can't have our normal schedule and we can't go out into the world and share our music, which is one of the reasons that we're doing this mini-series here on Facebook Live. So the prelude in B minor is particularly dark, and Georges Sand, Chopin's partner, once wrote this, and apparently he was playing this as she wrote this little passage. It's sort of typically florid, from the Romantic era. But she writes, "He saw himself drowned in a lake. Heavy, cold drops of water fell at regular intervals on his breast." And so, clearly, this is not a cheerful piece. It is melancholy, and yet I would argue that it's not quite as searching in the same way as the previous one. I would say the E minor prelude feels really personal, and this almost strikes me as more abstract and wandering. So as you listen, I invite you to close your eyes and to imagine yourself in no man's land, in the middle of nowhere, and as if you're searching for home. And I do think that a lot of music and a lot of our human experiences are a search, a quest for that which is home, proverbial home, literal home, but home in which we can feel centered and we could feel as if we have some grounding. So here's a prelude in B minor, Opus 28. minor. It's making me think of, it's kind of overcast out there, and there's almost this pall that kind of comes over the music, and it's just so beautiful. And I love Chopin's preludes because in a sense they transcend the word prelude. A prelude seems to evoke something, that's a sort of miniature, perhaps a beginning or an introduction to something. And perhaps in that sense, the preludes are an introduction for you to delve further and explore these feelings even deeper. So speaking of feelings, I'm going to turn that space heater down because I'm going to get a little bit more intense to close out today's program. How many of you are feeling angry? I know we've been kind of generally focusing on, again, being positive, trying to be upbeat, trying to look for the silver lining. But if you feel angry, let me know. And I don't blame you because it's a very human emotion. It's a natural response to confusion and chaos and suffering and all the devastation that is occurring around the world, to feel frustrated and to feel angry and to feel almost sort of helpless because we're all trapped inside our homes and it's impossible to stop something that is just so universal. At the same time, music can serve as an act and as an expression of defiance. Here at Decoda, we are looking at music as resilience, and I think that Chopin excelled at not only showing the interior, poetic, and melancholy sides of the human experience, but also the defiant and sort of the proud impulses that can happen in response to devastation. I have a little excerpt from this excellent biography. It's by Alan Walker, and it's called Frédéric Chopin, A Life in Times. And thankfully, in social isolation and quarantining at home, I have more time to read. So, and I just want to say that I feel really grateful that all of you are watching and that you are joining us here at Decoda Dusk. But anyway, so Chopin went through lots of experiences of suffering in his life, and one of the most pivotal in his life was the occupation of his homeland of Poland by Russia. This happened in 1831, and Chopin at that point had to move to Paris, and I think he never got to return to his motherland ever again. And so there's a lot of struggle that he goes through and that he shares in letters and in his diary. There's actually a little bit of an image. You can see his beautiful handwriting, but he gets pretty raw and real in the diary entry. It's called the Stuttgart Diary. And he is basically in a state of despair. He writes in response to the political upheaval going on and the fall of Warsaw. He writes this: "And I am here doing nothing, empty-handed, groaning and suffering, only able to pour out my grief at the piano. But what more can I do? O God, make the earth tremble so that it may swallow up this generation." Now, I don't know about you, but I feel like those words are pretty relevant to 2020. I think there have been events in the world that has caused us to almost just cry to the heavens. And according to legend, the book says, his fury overflowed into his revolutionary study, Opus 10, number 12. Although Chopin himself is silent on the matter, and the title is not this. I'm actually going to play that next. But here, Alan Walker writes, "The Stuttgart Diary reveals a crucible of emotions impossible to contain. There was hatred against those who had sacked his country, venom for all things Russian, a need for vengeance, overwhelming fear for the safety of his family, genuine remorse at his own helplessness, and feelings of deep inferiority mixed with a peculiar brand of self-loathing, born of the knowledge that he was too impotent to take up arms in defense of his homeland. Such naked revelations were never to be repeated, for within days the mask was back in place, and the world was not given a second chance to witness the emotions that lay behind it." but we have the chance to see those emotions because we have his music. And to close out tonight's episode, I'm going to play the Revolutionary Etude, Opus 10, number 12, and I invite you to dive in to the feelings of anger and frustration. It's almost like you want to just yell at the top of your lungs, and I think that this is a piece that is the perfect manifestation of that. It is truly a catharsis. It is a response to chaos, socio-political, to personal chaos, and it is also a brilliant and timeless reminder of the power of art to remind us of our humanity, the power of art to connect us, even in times of devastation, and the power of art to give us beauty amid some of the darkness in the world. So thank you so much for watching. Here is Chopin's Revolutionary Etude, Opus 10, number 12. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. Again, this episode is dedicated to all the brave and generous medical workers around the world, including my wonderful friends and some family members. Shout out to Carl, Tosh, Dehi, etc. I love you guys. I love you all watching. To all the parents taking care of your kids at home, and to all the workers at the stores, at basically all the people who can't take their time off. I feel truly privileged and grateful to be able to spend this wonderful time with all of you. Thank you for your support, and keep watching Decoda at Dusk, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. My wonderful friends Catherine Gregory and David Kaplan are coming up tomorrow, so you don't want to miss that. Thank you again so much. Take care, stay safe, stay healthy, stay home. I love you all.